Jason, you know, there's one thing that's been on my mind ever since they had this dispute with Fox before the Super Bowl, which is, can we count on Roku to continue to be a pure play, sort of agnostic streaming provider or not?
Yes, and I think what's very interesting is we're actually having this conversation. You know, I think 2 years ago, the idea that Roku could sit at the table with a Fox and negotiate something, I think would have been a surprise to people. So the company has evolved itself into an important platform, right? You know, the largest streaming platform right now in the U.S. And now the question is the evolution of the business model and how do they get paid for helping programmers get distribution.
Right, and as we understand it, you know, their way that they're placing ads and trying to increase the ad load is a big piece of this. But I just want to stay on this for one more moment. If they are going to be bogged down in negotiations with carriers going forward, how do you expect that to shake out in terms of pricing? I mean, Roku might have a seat at the table, but do they have a lot of power?
We'll see. I mean, there's different negotiations and economics for different services. So we believe that they are saying if you have a pure AVOD, so meaning a free service where they're just advertising, they are saying we will only provide you distribution if you give us a certain % of the ads, okay, or if you let us sell and share the revenue. However, if you're a hybrid service, meaning like a CBS All Access where there's a subscription and then ads, you know, that gets a little more complicated. So they may say, okay, as long as we get a cut of the subscription revenue, that suffices and we don't need the ads. And so given, you know, the point about the number of services coming, Peacock, I think I saw some research that said that the average U.S. household won't subscribe to more than 4 of these services at a time. So there's going to be a constant war. Something new comes, what do I drop? Well, then does that publisher want to kind of go to Roku and say, what can we do to try to juice our audience to offset those lost subscribers? And that flywheel is really just getting started now. Yeah,
and so to your point, Roku kind of wants to be a toll booth operator where it's getting some cut of everything that runs across its platform, whether it's you know, maybe the upfront cost of it or that ad share that you mentioned. That's super interesting. So you have a $155 price target on the stock. That's about $15 higher than where we are right now. What do you need to hear in both see in the earnings and here on the call today?
Sure. So a few metrics people will focus on. One is the number of users. Last quarter, they grew users, or they call them active accounts, 36%. You know, we're at 33. You know, I think kind of the buy side's probably looking a little bit higher than that, but we feel pretty good about that. And then really it comes down to there's going to be some noise around streaming hours because they made a feature so that they won't count hours that you may not actually be sitting there. So there'll be some noise on that, and people know that. Then it's platform revenue, which is that amalgamation of all of the different ways they get paid. And then platform gross profit. Last quarter, they grew platform gross profit 59%. I think the street's looking more like 45 or so. They'll probably come in the 50s, and then it'll be what is the implied guidance for next year. So I think as long as you have a business that people feel like can still grow gross profit over 40% in 2020 with potentially upside in the back half, the stock can move higher.
Ultimately, if what you say, Jason, comes true and people will pay for 4 of these services, are they ultimately going to end up paying as much or more than they used to pay for what was called the traditional bundle on a cable, from a cable system or a direct TV?
Well, I mean, so depending on kind of what you had,
what you
right?
pick.
I think, yeah, I mean, you know, my cable bill is still, you know, almost $200 because we still have too many boxes and then, you know, live in New York City. But, you know, on paper, what's the number? Is it like, well, is it $85? And then do you reallocate that 80? I think what we've seen is the skinny bundles that started at $35 were quite popular. And when they got up to 50, then you started seeing pushback on price. But this is where the AVOD comes in, right? So even if you only subscribe to a certain amount, there seems to be a business around having entirely free services that are ad supported. Right? And you could argue, like, in a way, that is what YouTube provided consumers, right? A way to get kind of totally free video, but this will be with professional content. So again, it's early and consumers are still trying to find out, I have this, I know I don't really want to pay for it, I don't use it, but what is next?